The walk-in cooler hummed a steady symphony, the only sound breaking the frantic symphony of thoughts swirling through my head. Beads of sweat trickled down my forehead despite the icy air. 10 hours to showtime, and the centerpiece of the Preston wedding reception, a rack of succulent lamb chops, was a gaping hole in my meticulously planned menu. Frank, my reliable butcher, had thrown a wrench into everything. For the past decade, it was a family emergency, the apathetic email had read. It wasn't his fault, of course, but emergencies didn't care about deadlines, especially not deadlines for the biggest wedding I had catered in years. My phone buzzed with a notification from the Preston event planner. "Everything on track, Clara?" It chirped innocently. I stared at the message, willing myself to conjure lamb chops out of thin air. Panic was a familiar dance partner, one I usually handled with practiced grace, but this time the stakes felt higher. The Prestons were social royalty, and a botched main course would be a career-crippling disaster. I checked my watch again, 2:30 p.m. Most butcher shops closed by 5, but Frank wouldn't be any help, and the grocery store chains wouldn't have the specific cuts I needed: free range, perfect marbling, the kind that would melt in your mouth and have the Prestons raving for weeks. Frantic, I typed butcher shops near me into my phone. A dozen results popped up, most of which were for generic supermarket chains I already knew. Then, nestled between a dry cleaner and a yoga studio, I saw a name that caught my eye: the Axe and Apron. Intrigued, I clicked on the website. A rustic storefront greeted me, with a picture of a tattooed man with a mischievous grin holding a cleaver like it was an extension of his arm. Below it, the tagline read: locally sourced, artistically crafted. An irrational hope flickered within me. Could this be a sign? A butcher with a penchant for artistry could be exactly what I needed. I scrolled down to the contact page and found a phone number. Taking a deep breath, I dialed. The ring echoed in my ear, stretching into an eternity before a cheerful voice answered. "The Axe and Apron, where your meat dreams come true. This is Ethan speaking." The voice, warm and friendly, calmed my racing heart a little. "Hi, Ethan. This is Clara from Clara's Creative Catering. I'm in a bit of a bind." I blurted out the entire story: Frank's absence, the missing lamb chops, the looming wedding. As I spoke, a strange sense of anticipation built within me. It wasn't just about finding the perfect meat, there was something intriguing about this Ethan character. "Hold on," he said once I finished, his voice laced with surprise. "A high-end wedding, last-minute notice, and you need free-range lamb with impeccable marbling." "Exactly," I said, holding my breath. There was a pause, then a chuckle that sent a shiver down my spine. "All right, Clara," he said, his voice dripping with amused confidence. "How about you come down here, and we see what magic we can conjure together?" The storefront of the Axe and Apron was as unique as its name. Gone were the sterile white walls and fluorescent lights of the usual butcher shop. This place oozed rustic charm, with exposed brick walls, hanging cleavers like macabre pieces of art, and an aroma that assaulted my senses in the best way possible: a symphony of herbs, spices, and the undeniably primal scent of fresh meat. A bell tinkled as I pushed open the heavy wooden door, and my gaze fell on Ethan. He was even more impressive in person, a canvas of tattoos peeking out from under his rolled-up sleeves, and a mischievous glint in his hazel eyes. "Clara, I presume?" he asked, a wide grin splitting his face. "Welcome to the Axe and Apron, where the meat cuts are as artistic as a Van Gogh." The comparison was unexpected but strangely fitting. I offered a smile, feeling a nervous flutter in my stomach. "Thank you for taking my call, Ethan. It's practically a miracle you're even open." "We cater to dreamers." "Clara," he said, his eyes twinkling. "And a caterer in a panic is definitely a dream waiting to be fulfilled." He gestured towards a glass display case filled with an array of meat, glistening steaks, plump sausages, and cuts of poultry that looked impossibly perfect. But my eyes were fixed on the back of the shop, where a large walk-in cooler hummed faintly. So he said, leaning against the counter, "Tell me more about this wedding reception. What kind of lamb magic are we conjuring?" I launched into a detailed explanation, describing the lavender and rosemary marinade I planned, the caramelized shallots that would complement the flavor. As I spoke, a comfortable energy flowed between us. He wasn't just a butcher, he was a culinary artist, listening intently, offering suggestions about herbs and cuts I hadn't even considered. He disappeared into the back for a moment, returning with a tray of lamb chops so perfect it looked like it belonged on a museum display. The marbling was flawless, the color a deep red that promised an explosion of flavor. This, he declared, holding up a chop with a flourish, is what dreams are made of. Free-range, grass-fed, and aged to perfection. It'll be the star of your show, Clara. Relief washed over me, tinged with a grudging respect for his knowledge and dedication. It wasn't just about selling a product, he cared about the culinary experience, about turning raw ingredients into a masterpiece. As we discussed quantities and pricing, I couldn't shake the feeling of being strangely captivated. His easy confidence, his passion for his craft, and the way his eyes crinkled with laughter when I made a witty remark were all a stark contrast to the predictable routine of my life with David. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed from the back. A sheepish grin spread across Ethan's face as he looked up. "All right, let's get you prepped, but first a little confession. I got a bit carried away back there. Let's just say you may have a couple of extra lamb shanks on your hands. Consider it a bonus for the wedding jitters." My heart skipped a beat. Was it a business move, a way to secure a repeat customer, or was there something more? The thought sent a pleasurable shiver down my spine. By the time I left the axe and apron with my precious cargo of lamb, a sense of accomplishment mingled with a strange sense of anticipation. The wedding caterer in me was ecstatic, having found a life-saving solution. But a different part of me, a part one hadn't acknowledged in a long time, felt a different kind of spark. A spark that had nothing to do with perfectly marbled lamb. As I walked back to my car, the image of Ethan's smile and his playful banter lingered in my mind. For the first time in a long time, a thought that had nothing to do with wedding menus or catering contracts crossed my mind, a dangerous thought. I pulled out my phone, Ethan's number saved under the axe and apron. Perhaps, I thought, a simple thank you note wouldn't be enough. Perhaps there was more to explore in this unexpected encounter, a taste of something different, something deliciously forbidden. The Preston wedding was a resounding success, thanks to Ethan's artistry and my meticulous preparation. The lamb was the talk of the night. Guests raved about its tenderness, the perfect blend of spices, and the way it practically melted on their tongues. As I stood backstage, basking in the afterglow of a flawless execution, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ethan. "Bravo, Clara. Those lamb chops were a symphony." I smiled, a secret thrill coursing through me. "Thank you, Ethan," I replied, typing with newfound confidence. "You're the true artist here." The next few days were a blur: post-event cleanup, invoice processing, and fielding calls from potential clients impressed by the wedding buzz. But beneath the surface of professional routine, a constant undercurrent simmered the memory of Ethan. He had become a persistent thought, a flicker of excitement amidst the predictability of my life. Finally, unable to resist any longer, I fabricated a small catering job for a fictitious client. The excuse felt ridiculous, but the desire to see Ethan again was stronger than my reservations. Walking into the axe and apron felt like stepping into a forbidden dream. Ethan, wiping his hands on a blood-stained apron like a warrior sheathing his sword, looked up with a surprised but welcoming grin. "Clara," he exclaimed, his voice warm and a touch breathless. "Are you back for another round of culinary magic, or perhaps a thank you visit for a wedding hero?" My cheeks flushed. "A bit of both," actually, I admitted, feeling both excited and strangely nervous. He winked, a playful glint in his eyes. "Perfect. Then let's get to work, shall we?" The afternoon flew by in a whirlwind of conversation and culinary exploration. He showed me unique cuts of meat, explained obscure cooking techniques, and peppered the conversation with witty anecdotes that made me laugh easily. By the time the client pickup time rolled around, the air crackled with unspoken tension. We stood close, his body brushing mine as he reached for an herb jar on a high shelf. "Clara," he began, his voice low and husky. Before he could finish, a bell tinkled, announcing the arrival of a real customer. Relief and disappointment flickered in equal measure within. me. The timing was inconvenient, shattering the charged atmosphere. Yet the way our eyes met, the lingering touch, it all confirmed a newfound connection. As the customer left, Ethan glanced at the clock. "It's almost closing time," he said, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Would you like a glass of wine to discuss the intricacies of future culinary endeavors?" My heart hammered against my ribs. It was a clear invitation, a step beyond the professional realm, yet the allure was undeniable. "I'd like that," I confessed, surprised by my own boldness. The small back room of the Axe and Apron, usually reserved for staff breaks, became our haven. We shared a bottle of red wine, the conversation flowing easily between us. We discovered shared passions, a love for travel, and a mutual disdain for pretentious food culture. As the night deepened, the line between friendly banter and flirting blurred. A stolen glance lingered a beat too long, a casual touch lingered on my hand. The dam finally broke when his fingers brushed my cheek, sending a jolt through my body. We kissed, the taste of wine and unspoken desire mingling on our lips. It was a kiss filled with the thrill of the forbidden, a stark contrast to the predictable routine of my marriage. I knew I was crossing a line, but the intensity of the emotions was intoxicating. As reality started to seep back in, we pulled away, breathless and a little shocked. Ethan, his eyes searching mine, seemed to be having the same internal struggle. "I should go," I stammered, the guilt of my actions already settling like a lead weight in my stomach. He nodded, his face unreadable. "Yes," he said, his voice rough. "Probably best." The walk home was a blur. The initial rush of excitement had been replaced by a profound sense of unease. The kiss, a fleeting moment of forbidden passion, had revealed a truth I could no longer ignore. My marriage, comfortable but lacking in spark, had reached a crossroads. Back in my bed, the familiar scent of David did nothing to quell the turmoil within me. The guilt gnawed at me, but so did the memory of Ethan's touch, a reminder of the connection I craved, the yearning for a fire that had long faded in my marriage. It was a tangled mess of emotions I had no immediate answer for, but one thing was clear: a part of me craved more. The next few weeks were a tightrope walk. I presented a flawless facade to David, a loving and attentive wife, but my mind often drifted back to Ethan, to the stolen kiss, and the exhilarating feeling of being desired. One afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan: "Missing your culinary brilliance," it read, followed by a winking emoji. My heart jumped. It was a playful message, yet it felt intimate, a secret language between us. With a thrill of defiance, I replied, "Perhaps I could arrange an inspection of your butchering skills within minutes." A message came back: "Looking forward to a thorough examination then, Chef Clara." The inspection turned into a clandestine affair. We met at the Axe and Apron after closing hours, the darkened shop an unexpected haven for our stolen moments. In this secret world, Ethan wasn't just a butcher, he was an escape, a reminder of the passionate, exhilarating side of myself I had buried beneath the demands of daily life. The tools of his trade became a metaphor for our connection, a sharp, forbidden thrill. The guilt simmered beneath the surface, but I justified it as a harmless escape, a way to reignite a spark within myself without jeopardizing my marriage. David, oblivious to the storm brewing within me, continued with his predictable routine work in the evenings, tired kisses before bed, and a comfortable but passionless existence. Yet the deception gnawed at me. Living a double life took its toll. I started to withdraw from David, his predictable jokes and routines feeling utterly mundane compared to the intensity of my encounters with Ethan. One evening, as dinner sat untouched on the table and David droned on about a tedious work meeting, the guilt threatened to drown me. An image of Ethan, his playful grin and warm hazel eyes, flashed across my mind. Suddenly I knew this couldn't continue. The thrill of the forbidden couldn't outweigh the damage I was doing to myself and to David. I needed to face reality and decide if my marriage was worth repairing, or if the spark with Ethan was a sign of something more profound. A difficult conversation with David loomed, one I couldn't avoid any longer. The secret had to come out, even if it shattered the fragile peace of our marriage. As I stared at David, a wave of loneliness washed over me, a loneliness I couldn't blame solely on him. With a deep, trembling breath, I knew it was time to confront the consequences of my actions, find my truth, and navigate the messy reality of life beyond the forbidden spark with the butcher. Do you think I should try to fix my marriage? Like and subscribe for more stories like these.